Long before humans ever looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond, ancient civilizations had already risen and fallen across the vast reaches of space. Across countless galaxies, thousands of species thrived, each with their own histories, wars, and myths. But among them all, one legend stood out. It was whispered in forgotten libraries and shadowed chambers, passed down like a warning. The story of the humans. They were said to be a race of unmatched destruction, so ruthless in their conquest that the elder species of the galaxy wiped all records of their existence. Some believed they destroyed themselves in an apocalyptic war. Others thought they fled beyond the known stars, vanishing into the void. Either way, they became little more than myth, a cautionary tale told to remind younger civilizations of the dangers of unchecked ambition. For centuries, the legend faded into obscurity. The great galactic empires dismissed it as fiction, just another ghost story meant a frightened emerging species, into humility. After all, if such a terrifying race had ever existed, surely they were gone by now. But then one day, the fleet arrived. The Dominion of Rail had ruled unchallenged for thousands of years. Their empire stretched across hundreds of systems, their technology far ahead of any rival, their fleets unmatched. When deep space sensors detected an anomaly on the edge of their territory, they assumed it was some lost colony ship or a foolish band of pirates daring to test their might. They sent a single dreadnought, expecting a swift extermination. The crew aboard the Vash laughed when they saw the strange vessels approaching. Ships made of crude metal, shaped for brutal efficiency rather than elegance. They were old relics from a forgotten age, their hulls scarred from endless battles. The Dominion hailed them with the arrogance of a species that had never known fear. The response came in a language long erased from the Dominion's archives. "We are humanity. Surrender or be destroyed." The Admiral sneered. It was impossible. The humans were myths, extinct, and yet, as the sensor scanned the incoming fleet, a cold unease crept into his gut. These ships, old as they were, moved with unnatural precision. Their weapons powered up flawlessly. Their formations were perfect. He ignored the feeling. The Rail had crushed countless enemies before. With a single command, he ordered the annihilation of the human fleet. It was the last mistake he ever made. The human ships accelerated faster than they should have. They wove through plasma fire like ghosts, dodging blasts with eerie accuracy. Their weapons, outdated by Dominion standards, should have been laughably ineffective. But they weren't. The first V-ship exploded within seconds, its shields overwhelmed by a barrage of kinetic slugs. Another erupted into flames as a missile, primitive yet devastating, pierced its core. The dreadnought, pride of the Dominion fleet, barely managed to send a distress signal before its bridge was torn apart by railgun fire. The battle lasted less than an hour. The humans didn't lose a single ship. Word spread like wildfire. The impossible had happened. The myths were real. The monsters had returned. And they were coming. The Dominion scrambled, sending more ships, larger fleets, entire armadas. None of it mattered. The humans fought like demons, with a brutality and cunning the Dominion had never encountered. They used tactics no one had seen before, strategies forged in the fires of endless war. They didn't seek diplomacy. They didn't ask for terms. They wanted revenge, for crimes long forgotten, for sins buried in time, for a galaxy that once tried to erase them. And so, as stars burned and entire worlds trembled, one message echoed across the cosmos, carried by the wreckage of every Dominion fleet that dared stand against them. Humanity has returned. The Dominion of Rail, once the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, found themselves gripped by a fear they hadn't felt in millennia. Reports poured in from every corner of their empire, each worse than the last. Entire fleets wiped out, colonies reduced to ashes, their once unshakable dominion crumbling under the relentless onslaught of an enemy they had dismissed as a myth. At the heart of the Dominion, Supreme Chancellor Vacos stood in the Grand War Chamber, surrounded by his highest-ranking commanders. Holograms flickered before them, each displaying the same grim reality. Human warships striking like phantoms, leaving only destruction in their wake. "This is impossible," Admiral Tannic muttered, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "These creatures are relics of the past. Their technology is ancient. Their ships crewed. How are they winning? Vekos turned to his intelligence officer, a pale-skinned Vera named Sane, whose trembling hands betrayed her fear. What do we know about them? He demanded. Sane hesitated. Not much. All records of the humans were purged long ago. What little remains suggests they were resilient, warlike. But this, she gestured at the destruction on the screen, this is beyond anything we could have imagined. Perhaps they were never truly gone, another general murmured. Perhaps they'd been watching, waiting, preparing for this very moment. The word sent a chill through the room. The idea that humanity had not vanished, but had instead been lurking in the void, building their strength, was more terrifying than any war machine. Enough speculation, Veko snapped. How do we stop them? Silence, because no one had an answer. This war was unlike anything the Dominion had ever faced. They had fought rebellious planets, rival empires, pirate factions. But those foes followed the same rules, the same unspoken laws of engagement. The humans did not. They struck without warning, refused to negotiate, refused to accept surrender. They targeted supply lines, shipyards, fuel reserves. They waged total war, an approach the Dominion had never encountered. And worst of all, the humans seemed to be getting stronger. The first human fleet had been small, but new warships appeared every day. Where were they coming from? How had they built so many ships in secret? Dominion spies had no answers, and that only deepened the terror. Then, humanity did something truly horrifying. They took their first planet. The Dominion had assumed the humans were nothing more than raiders, striking quickly and vanishing before retaliation. But when the industrial world of Chorus 9 fell, it became clear humanity wasn't just here for revenge. They were here to conquer. Survivors from the planet told stories of human soldiers unlike any the Dominion had seen. They fought in exosuits, moved like shadows, and left no Dominion soldier alive. The cities of Chorus 9 burned for weeks. And when the fires died, the human flag flew over the ruins. A new empire was rising, and the galaxy would never be the same. Panic spread like wildfire through the Dominion. Chorus 9 was only the first world to fall, but it wouldn't be the last. Human fleets struck deeper into Dominion space, taking planets with terrifying efficiency. Worlds that had stood under Dominion rule for centuries now burned with human fire. Supreme Chancellor Vekos could no longer ignore the truth. Humanity wasn't just winning. They were dismantling the Dominion piece by piece. He called for an emergency meeting of the High Council, a gathering of the most powerful beings in the Empire. The council chamber, usually a place of control and order, was now filled with fear and desperation. We must deploy our Omega-class warships, Admiral Torres argued. Their fleet is powerful, but they cannot match the raw might of our capital ships. We've already sent Omega-class ships, Sane countered, her voice trembling. They were destroyed. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the room. How? Vekos growled. Sane took a deep breath. We've underestimated them. Their ships may be old, but their technology has evolved in ways we never anticipated. Their weapons bypass our shielding systems. Their tactics are unlike anything we've faced. What do they want? One of the council members demanded. Sane hesitated before responding. Vengeance. Silence. Then the room erupted in shouts. This is madness. We are the Dominion. Negotiate with them. Surely they can be reasoned with. No, she said firmly. They will not stop until we are extinct. Vekos raised a hand, silencing the room. His reptilian eyes gleamed with fury. If it is vengeance they seek, he said slowly, then we will show them why the Dominion has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. We will burn their worlds, hunt them to the last soldier. But even as he spoke the words, he knew they fell hollow. For the first time in their history, the Dominion was facing an enemy that was not afraid. For humanity, this war was not about conquest or power. It was personal, and deep in the void beyond the reach of known space, a new fleet was assembling. Humanity had returned, and they were just getting started. The Dominion troops were used to clean, calculated warfare, strategic battles fought with precision and logic. But what they faced now was something else entirely. The humans didn't break when outnumbered. They didn't surrender when surrounded. They fought with an intensity that defied reason, using tactics that made no sense until they worked. The worst of all were the human shock troopers. These weren't just soldiers. They were hunters. They didn't just kill Dominion forces. They studied them, learned from them, adapted faster than any enemy the Dominion had ever encountered. A single battalion could be wiped out in one night by a small team of operatives armed with nothing more than outdated rifles and sheer determination. Their weapons, primitive by Dominion standards, fired simple kinetic rounds. But those bullets tore through armor like paper, and they showed no mercy. That terrified the Dominion more than anything. This wasn't just conquest. This was retribution. The Dominion leadership scrambled to understand why they were losing. They had ruled unchallenged for centuries. What had they done to bring this war upon themselves? Then, deep in the restricted archives, buried under layers of forgotten history, Supreme Chancellor Vacos uncovered a dark truth, one his ancestors had tried desperately to erase. The humans had never vanished. They had been erased. Centuries ago, long before the Dominion rose to power, their ancestors had encountered humanity, a young, ambitious species expanding rapidly across the stars. Humans forged alliances, mastered warfare, and evolved at a pace no other species could match. To the elder civilizations, they were not evil, but they were dangerous, relentless, unpredictable. So the decision was made. Genocide. Entire human worlds were burned to the ground. Colonies were wiped out. Every record of their existence was destroyed. Survivors were hunted to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, believed to have been completely eradicated. But they hadn't been. Somehow, humanity survived. Hidden in the shadows for centuries, they watched, waited, planned, and now they had returned, not as conquerors, not as diplomats, but as executioners. The realization hit Vacos like a death sentence. This wasn't a war. It was a reckoning. The humans weren't here to expand or dominate. They were here to settle a debt written in blood and fire, a debt the Dominion had forgotten, but humanity had never forgiven. Vacos stood alone in the silent war chamber, staring at the ancient records, holograms of burning human cities, coldly planned exterminations, and the faces of Dominion leaders from centuries past. Their decisions had sealed the fate of their descendants. The humans had every right to hate them. But even hate wasn't strong enough to describe what the humans felt now. This was justice. A sudden chime broke the heavy silence, an emergency transmission flickering to life on the main screen. Admiral Tannick's face appeared, pale and barely containing his panic. "They're here," he said, voice hollow. Vacos straightened. "Where?" "On Vel-Al Prime." A stunned hush fell over the room. Impossible. The humans were still pushing through the outer colonies. There was no way they should have reached the Dominion's capital so quickly. But they had. A second alarm blared. Tactical maps filled the chamber. Red markers descending from orbit like vengeful wraiths. Human warships, larger and deadlier than anything the Dominion had anticipated, had bypassed the outer defenses completely. They weren't here to fight another battle. They were here to end the war. The skies over Vel-Al Prime turned to fire as the first human drop ships pierced the atmosphere. Anti-air defenses roared to life, but it was already too late. The humans had planned this assault with the precision of a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war. Stealth craft had already infiltrated the planet's orbital stations, seizing control of defense platforms and turning them against the very fleets that once protected the Dominion. Warships exploded in low orbit, raining molten debris onto the cities below. Panic erupted on the streets. Citizens flooded the roads, watching in horror as their once invincible empire collapsed before their eyes. Dominion soldiers, raised to believe in their own superiority, now trembled as human strike teams emerged from the smoke. They fought like demons. The Dominion had never seen warfare like this. Brutal, relentless, efficient. Humans didn't waste time with theatrics. They struck vital infrastructure first, crippling power grids, communications hubs, and military coordination centers. Within hours, entire districts were plunged into darkness. Vacos remained in the war room, watching the nightmare unfold. His admirals screamed conflicting orders, but none of it mattered anymore. The Dominion was losing. No, humanity had already won. He had one last option. "The planetary annihilation protocol," he said, his voice eerily calm. The room froze. Even his most loyal generals recoiled. Chancellor Sane whispered, "That will kill billions. Our own people." Vacos met his gaze without flinching. "If we cannot have this world, neither will they." Before the order could be given, the doors to the war chamber burst open. A figure stepped inside, flanked by two human soldiers clad in jet-black armor. Vacos recognized him instantly, not from personal memory, but from the old archives. One of the last survivors, a descendant of the slaughtered race. A human. The man walked forward, his helmet tucked under one arm, his eyes filled with something worse than hatred. Certainty. Vacos clenched his jaw. "What do you want?" The human smiled. "Justice." Outside, the Dominion burned. Vel Prime fell in a single night. For centuries, the Dominion had ruled the galaxy with an iron grip. Its fleets were unmatched, its power unquestioned. But in the end, none of that mattered. Humanity had not come as conquerors or diplomats. They had come as executioners, delivering a long overdue sentence. The war did not end with negotiations or peace treaties. It ended with silence. By dawn, the Dominion's high command was gone. Supreme Chancellor Vacos, his admirals, his war ministers, all executed. The humans spared no one. No mercy. No wasted words. The judgment had been passed centuries ago. This was merely the sentence being carried out. The streets of Vel Prime were eerily quiet after the final battle. The towering spires of the Dominion's once great capital stood in ruin, smoke rising from shattered buildings. The banners of the Vol, once symbols of power, lay trampled in the dirt, and over the tallest tower, the flag of humanity flew. Across the galaxy, every Dominion-controlled planet received the same broadcast. A human commander stood before the camera, clad in dark, battle-worn armor. His face was calm, his voice steady. There was no joy in his words, only finality. "The Dominion is no more," he said. "Your leaders are dead. Your fleets are gone. Your empire has fallen." A heavy pause. "For centuries you ruled through fear. You erased our history. You tried to erase us. And yet here we stand." He leaned forward, his gaze burning into the lens. "Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. But we do understand justice." The screen flickered, showing images of surrendered Dominion soldiers being led away in chains. The humans had not wiped them out completely. Those who had not resisted, who had no hand in the genocide, would be spared. But they would never rule again. "We do not seek to replace you," the commander continued. "We are not here to build an empire. We have reclaimed what was stolen from us. Nothing more. The galaxy is free from Dominion tyranny. What happens next is up to you." The transmission ended, and with it, an era. The Dominion's collapse sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Worlds that had lived under its rule for centuries found themselves free for the first time in generations. Some rejoiced. Others fell into chaos. Rival species scrambled to fill the power vacuum, but none dared challenge the humans. Because now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity had survived extinction, and they had returned with a vengeance.